Now here are the lineages, GHI, JK groups down to Q, and we see it's through K to B, with the link between P and Q. So K, P, Q. As we saw, LM are the root races out of Africa, while NO is a different line of K, K2, C and D. And P, supposedly 41,000 years ago. And Q formed 28,000 years ago, according to this tree, around the same time as R. P supposedly spent a lot of time in the transition between K and Q, but we have no evidence of it in maps. I contend they are the sons of K2b and the daughters of Eve. Q was said to start in the Altai Mountains, where we find G as the original patriarch of this line. Some stayed in Europe and mixed with the other lines of K with Asian and European mitochondrial females, while other Qs continued into South America. Became the natives of North and South America, so we know at this time they must have had dark skin and O-positive blood, because they still do. But some of them look more Asian because of their mitochondrial M mothers. So Q with the M roots went off to the Americas, and R didn't. So Q and R supposedly both came from P lineage, as we saw. And there's these two different types that come back to Europe and Scandinavia. L940 and L804, who shares its lineage with M1107, who goes to North and South America. So you've got the M types and the L types from this root, which branches off after L56. And we find them coming back in this latter phase from 13,000 years to 1,300 years ago and into Western Europe. And here's their presence up in Scandinavia, Iceland and Greenland. But I contend the ones in southern France are subgroup L275, Q1b, who are probably the Ashkenazi Jews, who were known to populate Bashkia in Eastern Europe and the southeast region of France, bordering into Switzerland. And it seems that L275 is this particular type of Q that stayed in Asia and Europe and came into Iran and southern Asia, perhaps the roots of the Persians and Zoroaster. The other haplogroup, particular to the Middle East, in 32% of Ashkenazi Jews, is mitochondrial K, otherwise known as mitochondrial U8, thought to be of Hebrew origin, with foci in the Caucasus Mountains, Syria and Judah, whose descendants lived in Europe. Mitochondrial K, Katrine, is one of the mitochondrial R group of females who spread this haplogroup, they have determined, about 2,000 years ago, to now be present in about 6% of Europeans, but it may have had one special mother who went to France. A lock of hair kept in a church in France, said to have belonged to Mary Magdalene, is mitochondrial K. Also, there is a church in Spain dedicated to Mary Magdalene, who is said to have fled Israel through Spain and France, perhaps even to Glastonbury, where folklore tells of offspring of Jesus and Mary continued as the Alpha lineage. And could their males have been the Q1bs who came into southern France with mitochondrial K, while the other offshoots from L274 could have been the root of the Genghis Khan peoples, the Mongols, who stayed in Asia and were probably a conglomerate of male haplogroups Q, N and O, with ancient DNA who may have been responsible for the Oriental looks. The Chinese people say that their divine lineage was flown in on the dragon, and haplogroup D appeared to have come from nowhere into Japan and China, and didn't actually mix into any other haplogroup. I contend that even though Q, N, and O all stem from male haplogroup G, they look different because N and O males mixed with the mitochondrial M females and have B blood, whereas Q mated with N on their passage across to America before mitochondrial M came into being. We've been told that Q males started in the Altai Mountains, and we see a population in Kazakhstan, where we have also seen that G males were populating in the era before. So I consider G to be the patriarch of K onwards. Q, N, O, and Q, but all with different mothers. Another interesting link with the patriarch G is the area of Astana in Kazakhstan, the seat of power of the United Nations, who seem to be overseeing the takeover of the world by the Titans. The Mongol clans appeared to go through various stages of expansion, ending with the Golden Horde, which look surprisingly like Caucasians, and mixtures of these people explaining the Turks and the Huns. But before we leave Q, here's something even more fantastic. You recall that we spoke about these two lines that stayed in Asia, going back to Western Europe, Scandinavia, in the last few thousand years. We'll concentrate on the bottom line of the L56 strain that became M1107 and M930. And here they are with a reference to the only name that I've ever seen associated with the haplogroups, and that's of Carter. Q1B1A1 he's called, and here he referenced again from L804, John Carter. Here once again, the pedigree of John Carter goes through possible presidents, W. Harrison. And who was the Harrison line? Benjamin Harrison, and two of his sons were presidents of America. Benjamin Harrison V was a founding father and was involved in the Declaration of Independence and the cessation of links with Britain, the American Revolution. And here we see L804 on the charts from the M930 line, but no explanation of how it came back to America. And the one below that, B34, was the only type that stayed in North America. A special subgroup of Q, Y4276, that stayed in North America and Mexico, while the other leg of the M930 strain all went to Mexico and South America, and all had a variety of mitochondrial haplogroups, although some may have come in later than others, which would account for their different regional appearances, even though they are all haplogroup Q. Now, they say that truth can be stranger than fiction. No wonder they make sci-fi movies with an element of truth in them. And here we see that John Carter had a movie made about this story of John Carter from Mars, based on a book by Edgar Rice Burroughs in 1918 called The Priestess of Mars. And John Carter was supposedly a soldier for North America in the Civil War, who met a light being in an Indian cave as he was running away from the army trying to conscript him again into their services. And he found an amulet that had magical powers and took him to Mars with these otherworldly beings, these three hailed people that came to give an energy weapon to the people of Mars, which of course they misused. And the beings gave them the energy weapon to give them dominance over the other types of people on that planet. So it appears to speak of a galactic agenda that enables superior beings to infiltrate and affect the course of the human experience on planets or dimensions. And I think that's what's happening here. The powers that be leave symbology and clues in all sorts of ways. This picture of George Washington sitting on clouds with Scythian princesses and flying beings seems to indicate the gods from the sky, the demigods that have enabled certain kinds of humans to dominate the rest through their superior knowledge and keeping the secrets for cycles of time until such time as it will be revealed to those who wish to see it. We see the first change from male Q to R1 in North America when mitochondrial X gets there. And if you remember from the mitochondrial haplogroup tree, X was off early days with I and W, and they all appeared at the caucus. His mitochondrial X coming down through Turkey and up to the Black Sea with the G2 males. G2 males took her up to the Black Sea but didn't take her across to Sardinia. G2 went there on his own, but he was the father of mitochondrial X females who ended up over in America, and they populated Northern America, and that's why I call them the line of Pocahontas. And she was taken over there while she was still part of the N group. There's no evidence of them coming across the land bridge, so it appears that they were sailed there. And as we know, all of Asia became mitochondrial M, so they couldn't have passed through after N changed to M. So it appears they came across through the water, leaving remnants in the Orkney Islands in Scotland on the way, and a high concentration among the Israeli Druze people. There's evidence of Hebrew artifacts and mound building and all sorts of things, and these places that had an early colonisation history by people that were not the North American Qs, much earlier than the 17th century invasion of the English. Here we see they were colonised many years before, perhaps thousands of years before. So is there any evidence of these people that came in? Mounds with remnants, with artefacts left in them. This is one of them, and it has Hebrew characters on it. The builders of these mounds also understood the law of Moses. So there's your link with Israel. They must have mixed with the indigenous Q people. They were a new patriarchal haplogroup called R1, fallen angels in the Ohio Valley. The lineage of the DNA of Pocahontas, the royal tribe that went over the mitochondrial X, remained important and was brought back to Europe in the 1800s and was married to a fellow of the elite English lineages, Thomas Rolfe. The song at the end is the theme music to the Disney movie Pocahontas, When the Wild Wind Blows. As we know, there's a lot of subliminal messaging in movies and TV and media. Q and R basically cover the world. So next we get to the final titans, male R1As and R1Bs.